Fame gave them noise, but substances took everything else. The 25 metal stars ruined by substances weren't just heavy metal icons, they were ticking time bombs with guitars. The stage lit them up, but the shadows always followed. Brace yourself, some of the falls you're about to witness were so brutal, the spotlight never came back on. 1. Phil Anselmo. Phil Anselmo screamed like a man on fire. Fronting Pantera, he looked unstoppable. Tattoos, rage, sweat. He was the kind of frontman who didn't perform. He exploded. But backstage, the pain never stopped. Back injuries, pills, heroin, silence. He started using it to numb the hurt. Then he couldn't stop. The silence grew louder than the amps. His addiction grew louder than his voice. He nodded off in interviews, missed rehearsals, fought with his bandmates. Pantera wasn't just breaking up over music, it was breaking over Phil. And deep down, he knew it. He tried to mask it with bravado, but masks crack under pressure. Behind the snarls and bravado was someone falling apart. He overdosed in 1996. Technically died. They brought him back, but something in him stayed gone. He kept performing, starting bands like Down and Superjoint Ritual, but the fire flickered. Every interview turned into an apology. Every show carried the weight of regret. Phil didn't just hurt himself. He helped bury one of metal's greatest bands, and even today, the ghost of that loss follows him on stage. And every scream he lets out carries a bit of that guilt, like a shadow stitched into his voice. 2. Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy didn't just flirt with chaos. He married it, moved in with it, and threw wild parties in its honor. The Prince of Darkness built an empire on madness, but behind the legend was a man falling apart in slow motion. Booze, pills, stimulants. More booze. Ozzy wasn't just using, he was surviving. He wasn't chasing a high. He was drowning the silence. He got kicked out of Black Sabbath not because he lost his voice, but because he lost control. His solo career exploded, but so did his demons. He bit the head off a bat on stage. He urinated on the Alamo. He slurred through interviews and stumbled through shows. Fans laughed, but his family didn't. Behind the scenes, things were crumbling. Sharon Osbourne became his anchor. Rehab became routine. The reality show made the chaos a spectacle, but the man behind the music, he was breaking down. Years of trauma melted his memory, clouded his voice, and carved deep lines in his soul. Ozzy's still here, but so is the damage, and it never really left. His body lived. His mind barely kept up. And every time he sings now, it's a small miracle, one hard-won breath at a time. 3. Vince Neil. Vince Neil lived like rules were background noise. As the voice of Motley Crue, he didn't just sing about chaos, he lived it with both fists swinging. The booze wasn't just part of the show, it was the fuel, the mask, the escape. You could hear it in his slurred interviews, see it in his stumbles, feel it in the way his voice faded over the years. Vince wasn't partying, he was bleeding in slow motion. Then came 1984, behind the wheel, drunk. He crashed into another car, took the life of his friend Razzle from Hanoi Rocks, just like that. Gone. Vince went to jail, but barely. Just a few weeks. A fine. A press conference. Then the lights came back on, and the music kept playing. But something inside Vince shattered that night, and it never came back together. He kept drinking, kept spiraling. The voice that once electrified arenas became rough, tired, strained. He missed shows, slurred lyrics, looked lost on stage. The band kept moving. Vince kept crumbling. Glam faded. Pain didn't. That night on Sunset Boulevard still haunts him. Not in dreams. In silence. In stares. In the empty spaces between songs. Vince Neil didn't just survive a crash. He's been living inside it ever since. 4. Scott Weiland. Scott Weiland didn't belong in just one band. He was too big, too strange, too broken for that. Stone Temple Pilots gave him a stage. Velvet Revolver gave him a second wind. Other projects tried to capture the spark, but the fire kept slipping through their fingers. Fans loved him. His voice was velvet dipped in gasoline. But heroin loved him more. He wasn't just addicted, he was trapped. Rehab was a revolving door. 1 month clean, 2 months gone. Fired, rehired, fired again. His voice stayed gold, but his eyes dulled. There was something behind them that never came back. Like the real Scott had wandered off and left a shell to keep singing. He died on a cold tour bus in 2015. Alone, frozen, a syringe nearby, a whisper of a man who used to roar. There was no candlelight vigil, no parade of tributes, just another name in a long line of warnings ignored. The industry mourned him in tweets, then moved on. Scott didn't just lose the fight, he fought. A loop of recovery and relapse until there was nothing left to loop. His voice still plays on the radio, but the man? He's a ghost trapped in the static. 5. Layne Staley. Layne Staley didn't just sing pain, he became it. The voice of Alice in Chains wasn't just dark, it was soaked in despair. His vocals sounded like someone clawing their way out of a coffin. He didn't hide the struggle, he turned it into music. Made you feel every needle, every tear, every moment he wished he wasn't breathing. Layne vanished before he died. The band slowed down. He slipped into an apartment and barely came out. His weight dropped. His skin grayed. Friends begged him to let them in. He didn't answer. The man who once held stadiums in silence couldn't hold himself together. In 2002, they found him, dead, weeks gone, rotting into the floor, a syringe nearby. The news broke like an afterthought. He had already disappeared long before that headline. The saddest part? Nobody was surprised. Everyone had been waiting for this obituary. Layne didn't scream when he left. He faded. Quiet. Lonely. A man who made pain sound beautiful, but couldn't escape his own. He didn't die a rock star. He died as a warning, one we still haven't learned from, one that echoes every time a haunted voice plays through worn-out speakers. 6. Jeff Hanneman. Jeff Hanneman didn't die the way people expect metal legends to go. There was no overdose on a tour bus, no car crashes, no loud bang, just a body quietly failing. But behind that quiet end was a slow-motion spiral that had been building for years. His liver failed, and alcohol was the reason. Jeff was the soul of Slayer. His riffs weren't just fast, they were surgical, cold, sharp, and he carried that same intensity off stage, sometimes in dangerous ways. Drinking was part of the image, part of the culture. But with Jeff, it wasn't a party. It was a slow escape. It started with a spider bite, a freak thing. He got necrotizing fasciitis. His flesh started to rot. He had to stop playing. Everyone thought he'd be back, but while his body healed, his spirit didn't. He drank. Alone, quietly. He stopped showing up to things. The band moved on without him, not by choice, but by necessity. By the time he died in 2013, most people hadn't seen him in years. His liver gave out, gone in a flash. But it wasn't sudden. It was years in the making, and Slayer was never the same. The speed, the fury, the chaos, none of it could replace Jeff's dark calm. He was the thunder beneath the storm. 7. Joey Jordison. Joey Jordison was Slipknot's heartbeat. Fast, feral, unrelenting. He didn't just play drums, he unleashed them. He looked like a demon in a mask, but he played like a machine possessed. On stage, he was a blur of limbs. Off stage, he was quietly breaking. For years, no one saw it. He smiled in interviews. He talked about music, his bands, his dreams. But inside, things were falling apart. In 2013, Slipknot kicked him out. No warning, no clear reason. Fans were shocked. Joey was crushed. He said they turned their backs on him when he needed them most. Later, he revealed the truth. He had a neurological disease, transverse myelitis. It paralyzed his legs. He couldn't play, couldn't walk, and in that silence, old demons came knocking. Pills, depression, isolation. He tried to fight, formed new bands, wrote new music, but the light in him had dimmed. In 2021, Joey died. Alone, no cause made public, just a silent goodbye. The man who once sat on a rotating drum kit, upside down, pounding the world into submission, slipped into the dark. No spotlight, no final solo, just silence. And for Slipknot fans, it was like losing gravity itself. 8. Peter Steele. Peter Steele was a gothic metal's giant. 6'8", pale as marble, with a voice so deep it rumbled. He looked like Dracula and sang like a funeral hymn. Type O Negative wasn't just a band. I was in a good mood, a shadow, and Peter was its architect. But shadows don't just hide things. Sometimes they swallow them. Peter drank, a lot. He joked about death, posed in coffins, talked about the end like it was an old friend. But behind that theatrical doom was a man losing himself. Depression clung to him like fog. Addiction followed. He disappeared for stretches, vanished from stages, came back thinner, sadder. In 2005, he was gone for over a year. Rumors swirled, rehab, jail, death. He returned, quieter and changed. But the damage had roots. In 2010, he died of heart failure, just 48. Too young, but also somehow already ancient. Peter didn't burn out. He slowly faded, the way a candle flickers before the dark. Fans still speak his name with reverence. His voice still echoes in headphones. But the man who made sorrow beautiful couldn't escape his own, and his final breath felt like a church bell, low, haunting, and final. 9. Steven Adler. Steven Adler was Guns N' Roses before the destruction set in. His drumming gave the band its wild groove. It's a dangerous swing. He played like someone on the edge. Turns out he was. Steven's addiction wasn't a phase, it was a full-time job. He started with the party substances, coke, weed, booze, but the fun didn't last. Heroin grabbed him hard. It ruined his timing, made him miss rehearsals. The band noticed. They gave him warnings, chances. He blew them. In 1990, they fired him. The band he helped build kicked him out, but even that didn't wake him up. He got worse, more relapses, more hospital visits. At one point, he had a stroke from an overdose, lost the ability to speak clearly, had to relearn basic skills. Reality shows tried to help him recover. Dr. Drew, sobriety boot camps, tearful confessions. But the shadow never really lifted. Steven's story is one of almost everything. Almost sober, almost healthy, almost back, but never quite. He's still alive, still trying, but he lost more than time. He lost his place in history. While the rest of Guns N' Roses became legends, Steven became a cautionary tale, a beat that fell behind and never quite caught up. 10. Johnny Lane. Johnny Lane looked like every glam metal dream came true. Blonde hair, big smile, the voice behind Cherry Pie. His songs were candy-coated hits, sugar on top of thunder. But behind the smile and makeup was a man unraveling. Alcohol didn't just ruin Johnny's career. It devoured it piece by piece, verse by verse. At the height of Warrant's fame, he was everywhere, MTV, radio, posters on teenage walls. But the attention felt fake, and the pressure carved into him. He drank to cope, then to forget, then just to function. The glass became a daily instrument, more familiar than his microphone. He started missing flights, slurring lyrics, collapsing backstage. Bandmates tried to save him. Fans looked away. The decline was quiet but constant. His solo efforts carried sparks of brilliance, but the bottle kept stealing the pen before he could finish the song. In 2011, they found him in a hotel room, surrounded by vodka bottles, alone. A note in his pocket. A career that once soared had landed in silence. He was 47. Johnny wasn't a one-hit wonder. He was a bright, broken poet trapped in a plastic fantasy. When the music faded, the pain stayed. His story plays like a chorus you can't get out of your head. Sweet, sad, and too short. 11. Chris Cornell. Chris Cornell sang like a man trying to claw his way out of himself. That voice, rich, anguished, unearthly, was a paradox. It carried rage and grace in equal measure. He fronted Soundgarden, Audioslave, and Temple of the Dog. Every word he sang sounded like it might be his last. And maybe, deep down, he hoped it would be. From the start, addiction followed him like a shadow. Prescription pills, alcohol, depression. He had periods of sobriety, stretches of hope. He talked about them, wrote about them, but something dark always hovered at the edge. No amount of fame could quiet it. In 2017, after a show in Detroit, he was found dead, a self-inflicted death. Meds in his system, some prescribed, some not. None enough to silence the weight he carried. The world was stunned, but not surprised. Because Chris sang about endings before they came. He didn't leave a note. He left a discography full of warnings, songs that screamed, whispered, wept. Chris didn't just perform darkness, he lived in it. And when the curtain fell, there was no encore, just silence where his voice should be. He didn't go quietly. His songs still ring like echoes in a canyon, deep, lonely, and unforgettable. 12. Tommy Lee. Tommy Lee lived louder than his drums. Motley Crue's heartbeat. A whirlwind of tattoos, scandals, and destruction in motion. On stage, he was the circus. Off stage, the wreckage. He wasn't just part of the party, he was the party. But behind the noise was a man quietly unraveling. Fame poured everything into his lap. Substances almost buried him beneath it. His life played out like a tabloid fever dream. Mansion fights, jail time, drunken interviews, rage-fueled arrests, public meltdowns. Marriage to Pamela Anderson became a reality show war zone. Their home was a camera set. Their arguments, public property. Tommy's face was everywhere, but his mind was lost in the fog. He tried to quit drinking, then started again. He tried rehab. Then I left. It was a loop, loud, messy, predictable. The band used it. The media devoured it. Fans called it rock and roll, but it was just a man spinning. Today, he plays the role of survivor, the one who made it through. He still tours, still posts, still smiles. But under the laughter are scars inked deep, not just on his skin, but in the story. Every drumbeat sounds like someone trying to outrun their own echo, and Tommy knows that rhythm better than anyone. 13. Steven Tyler. Steven Tyler didn't walk into a room, he exploded into it. The voice of Aerosmith, the peacock king of rock. He danced, screamed, and seduced his way into the spotlight, living louder than the amplifiers behind him. But every high note had a price, and every costume hid a collapse. Substances were his co-pilot. Stimulants, heroin, pills, whiskey. The Toxic Twins, Tyler and Joe Perry, didn't just dabble, they devoured. Their band was fueled by hits and near-death experiences. Steven passed out mid-flight, slurred through interviews, lost nights, lost friends, lost pieces of himself. Aerosmith nearly died with him. Fights erupted. Bandmates walked. Tours stalled. Then came rehab, then relapse, then rehab again. It was a cycle written in smoke. He chased peace, but couldn't catch it. Success didn't quiet the noise inside. 14. Ace Frehley. Ace Frehley made the Spacemen fly. KISS wouldn't have launched without him. His solos were like rockets, sharp, loud, untamed. He was the wild card, the mystery, the guy with stars on his face and explosions in his guitar. But when the lights went off, Ace didn't float in space. He crashed. Substances, booze, days lost in hazy loops. He missed rehearsals, showed up wasted, forgot chords, forgot people. His dream turned into a fuzzy, stumbling nightmare. The stardust settled into broken promises. Fame handed him a firework. He let it explode in his hands. He left Kiss, came back, left again. Fans crossed fingers, hoped he'd stay clean. But sobriety was a flickering light. Rehab came in cycles. Excuses, too. His playing dulled. The sharp edges of his talent softened under the weight of chemical fog. He admits it now, says the party took the wheel, that he just held on. His solo work? Moments of brilliance drowned in relapse. Even his comeback stories come with